Writing Units and Conversions Chef Tech e-learning class. My name is Becky. I'm one of the trainers here. And tell me a little bit about your operation and where you're at with Chef Tech, how long you worked with it, and Jay, I'll let you go first.
We're a full-service barbecue restaurant. We do breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And we've been using the Chef Tech program maybe a little over a year.
Okay. And are you the one entering in your recipes?
Correct. Yep, I'm the main. I'm it.
You're it. Okay. Sounds good. And Carter, what about you?
We've been on and off. I'm kind of just taking over now with Whole Point One, doing the classes, but we've had it for quite a while, just not 100% up to date. So I'm in the process of get everything caught up.
All right. Wonderful. Well, we'll get started. We got a lot to cover. Usually I leave about 5 to 10 minutes towards the end, depending upon questions you may have that could be related to recipes or related to anything you want. If you had a question that you were absolutely dying to know that has nothing to do with recipes, that's okay. So I will make sure that I leave enough time towards the end to answer those questions. In the meantime, is everyone able to see my screen? It's a nice gray screen at the moment.
Yes.
All right, wonderful. I'm going to go over a few basic functionality that we all know. We know that to access our Chef Tech, we can certainly use our Chef Tech drop-down in the top left-hand corner. Chef Tech is open, will give us any functionality in our Chef Tech and will direct us to that path. If you have anything grayed out, that means it's not available to you in the product that you may have, such as production or what a food cost calculator I know are grayed out on several different Chef Techs. We have our top drop-downs. This is our drop-down aspect of Chef Tech toolbar. We have what we call our primary button bar. This is going to be the one-stop shopping. So instead of going through our Chef Tech open inventory, we can actually hit our inventory list and get to the same button, to the same list view. I like to, Chef Tech has a lot of functionality. There's a lot going on with it. So I like to keep it simple and keep my primary button bar available for the only things that I use for Chef Tech. In order to change your primary button view, we go to our setup, and we can actually set our toolbar. And I know we're not going to be working on pars or orders or extensions or locations, and I can select OK. Okay, and now my primary button bar is only what I want to see, completely customizable. On our bottom button bar, we have the ability to look at properties. When I ask myself, how do I see this? How do I print this? Properties is going to give you the different visual effects that you so desire in your Chef Tech. Especially in this is going to be my list view. You will notice that the properties will change according to what list view you're in. So I'm in inventory right now. If I go to recipes and I go to properties, you'll notice that my properties will change because it's correlated to the list view that you're in. Also, what changes in Chef Tech, depending upon what list view you're in, is going to be your print drop-down. This is going to be all of your reports and items that you want to see or print. If I go to my print drop-down in my recipe list view, you'll see that I have several different previews and prints and exports. If I close out of my recipe list and go into my inventory list, I go to my print drop-down, and you'll notice it is drastically different, and I have a lot more options of different reports that I can print in my inventory list. When writing recipes, the biggest thing that we all need to know is the foundation of our chef tech. Our foundation of our chef tech is our inventory list, found with the inventory button. This list is going to be the base of your chef tech. So if a la carte, Carter, you've had your database for years and years and years, you may want to look at, before you start pioneering into recipes, to actually look at your inventory all stocked. On our left-hand side of our list view, you'll notice we have what we call our left tree. I call it our tree of knowledge. This is the way that Chef Tech organizes the mass amount of information that's driving through your Chef Tech. In the inventory list view, under all stocked in our left tree, you'll notice everything's going to be in green. This means these are items that have been added to your Chef Tech through the invoice population or a recipe or a physical inventory item. So these items are live that have information behind them. These are the items I always tell people, start here first, because what this list should consist of, I have 253 items. How I know is at the top right-hand corner of my list view, it says 253. These items should have purchases within the last 6 months. They should be included in active recipes, and they are counted in physical inventory. If you have items in this list that you haven't purchased since 2011, then those items should be destocked and get rid of this list. Because when you build recipes, you only want to use items that are relevant, especially if costing recipes is important to you. You want to ensure that you're using items that you're actually counting or you're actually purchasing to get the right information. In order to look at this list and clean up this list, I'm going to go ahead and right-click, because we can right-click, edit highlighted item anywhere in our database, in our recipe list, invoice list, inventory location list, right-click, edit inventory item. I'm going to notice that it is in through my tabs, I have my item. I've got what location I'm counting it in and by which unit I'm counting in. This class definitely covers units and conversions, which is going to follow your Chef Tech all the way through. And we want to make sure that we have all of the correct information. So I see that I'm counting it by the pound. So what Chef Tech wants to know as far as units and conversions goes is I buy it by a unit of measure. 9 times out of 10, I buy it by the case. Barbecue, you buy a lot of meats by the pound. So when we have a purchase by a weight or volume and we use it in a recipe by a weight and volume and we count it by a weight, then we don't need a conversion and we don't need to create a new unit of measure. Chef Tech comes with 25 units of measure pre-populated into Chef Tech. We can go to our Chef Tech Open, which gets us into everything, and look at our units. These are going to be all of the units of measure that are inside of Chef Tech. So I have number 10 cans, barrels, baskets, bottles, and you'll notice anything on the left-hand side that has a green check mark, that's going to mean that that is a unit of measure that has been added by me. Now that is very usual, because let's say we buy frozen vegetables. We buy it by the case, or French fries. We buy it by the case, but then we count it by the bag. Using units of measure that are relative to your operation that your staff knows is quite all right. We don't say don't add any units of measure, but keep them very limited. And make sure when you add that unit of measure, that unit of measure is going to apply to many items and not just one item. So I can use bags in different scenarios. Units is one of the hardest things to fix or to consolidate in ChefTech because it is used across profit centers. So when I look at units, bag, bushel, can, I could have can in a totally different profit center, and it's hard to find out where. So I can look through here, and then down at the bottom of this list view of units, I can do counts, and you'll notice that I have the ability to see where they were used. Let's get out of there. Sometimes in ChefTech I like to get to my gray screen, units, counts. Here we go. So in our counts, once I select counts, you can say, okay, well, the word bag, I used bag 37 times in a conversion. It's in 10 different product codes, and purchases, I've used it 34 times. So this is a way that you can start looking at maybe junk units of measure and try to clean that up in order to get revise your units of measure. If I see something that I want to delete, like can, I have a count for it in conversions. And if I try to delete it, it's not going to let me delete it because it's being used. So I literally, in order to get rid of cans, I have to find what conversion it's used 3 times in order to get it out of my system. So if you have pounds, P-O-U-N-D, and L-B, you know, those are things to look at when cleaning up your system or using ChefTech. So use ChefTech units of measure to the best of your ability. Going back to those alfalfa sprouts, we go to our general, and this would be all of the recipes it's located. Seeing that that's a bad example, and so is my almonds, I would love to find a recipe that has something. So I have my beef ground, I go into my general, and then I'll have a list of all my recipes, so I'm able to get into my recipes. Units, these are our units again. So these are important if we're looking at our inventory on hand screen, which is going to be coming from your physical inventory. This is going to be if you are using your shopping list from your recipe level. This way what it's doing is it's going to round up or consolidate all the different units of measure to one unit of measure for looking at reporting. So I may count ground by the case and the pound, but when I look at it on my reports, I want to see it all in a pound. So we can set the different functionality that we use it for. Conversions can be as easy or as hard as you make them. When you see a missing conversion, whether you're doing physical inventory or in recipes, it all comes from how the ingredient was entered into ChefTech. If you enter it in through purchases, or whether you enter, however you enter it in, ChefTech needs to know in order to use blueberries by a cup or by the pound or by the each, you have to look at point of entry. So my blueberries point of entry came through my invoice by Boulder Produce by the case. ChefTech doesn't know what a case is, what an each is. It won't know any unit of measure, whether it's a ChefTech unit of measure or not, unless it is a unit of measure of weight or volume. So if you're going to use your item in your recipe in any way other than how you've purchased it, then you're going to have a conversion for it. So when I enter in my invoices, anytime I see the word case or each or pack, any of those non-weight or volume units of measure, I always go straight to my conversion tab, because 9 times out of 10 you're going to have your pack size on your invoice. So what I'm saying here is Boulder Produce, 1 case is 12 each, and then 1 each is 6 ounces. And because I use a ChefTech unit of measure or ChefTech inventory item, I have a nifty weight to volume conversion. So this gives me the ability to use in a recipe or count in inventory by the case, by the each, and by a weight, and by a volume, and it all talks to each other. So if I do my due diligence through my invoice or my point of entry for my inventory item, then writing recipes is going to be a lot smoother, and you're not going to see those errors of missing conversion or missing purchases or missing units. So this is why I spend time in all of my classes to teach the importance of your inventory list and the population of this inventory list. Any questions so far?
No, none for me.
Okay.
No.
All right. So since ChefTech is a live database, you can get out of your list views several different ways. We can hit the red X. We can hit the close button on our left-hand side, and we can also choose the close all windows underneath our ChefTech drop-down to get to the gray screen. And you'll notice sometimes when we get different errors or different pop-ups, and I really find that if we close all screens and kind of refresh and reset and go back into the list view or what we were looking at, you'll get the desired results you're looking for. So we're going to go into recipes, and please note, which I'm sure you've noticed, the only time you don't want to hit that red X is to exit your system altogether. So the very top red X is a no-no. Try not to hit that to the best of your ability. But to successfully exit out of your system, you want to hit the green exit button for the day. Okay. All right, so recipes. How far are you two in your recipe writing?
I'm well, basically what you have on the screen is how we end up doing it. We do the same thing, going through, bringing the product in, going through our conversion, basically going through that whole page right there. So we're set up so that when we do add anything in that's a common ingredient, it normally shows up in green.
Yep, exactly. And that's the best way to do it. And Carter, what about you?
Our recipes are in there. Not all of them are complete, so it's kind of some need some work on them.
Okay, great. Well, you're ahead of the game. That's good. Okay, so with recipes, what you want to look at is we have several ways to write recipes. We have sub-recipes, we have saleable recipes, we have batch recipes, whatever you may have associated. Anytime you manipulate ingredients, you marinate them, you cook them, you're adding ingredients, anytime you're producing an item, in ChefTech's world, that is a recipe. The only time that you don't create a recipe perhaps is for beer, wine, liquor, or any items that you're purchasing straight from your vendor and it's going right out to your consumer, a bottle of water, a can of soda, an apple. Anything that is purchased in and goes straight out does not need a recipe. Anything else, we call it a recipe. You'll notice on our left-hand side we have our tree, left-hand tree. This is going to be the organization of all of our recipes. You'll see here that we have recipe categories, dressing, entree, hors d'oeuvres. To edit or revise these or add, we can right-click, which is one of our best friends in ChefTech, and we can actually add a new category, and this can be called brunch. We can have as many categories as we want. We can have as little as we want, but note that some reporting is based off recipe categories. I use recipe categories religiously, especially if I'm cleaning up items as well. Recipe locations, this is going to be attached to production. You can use it if you want in different ways, just for another organizational tool. It's also on your print features. You have your different authors, especially if your chef tech has moved hands. We can also look at no categories to see what's been working on. Similar to our inventory list, we want to keep that inventory list valid. Well, we also want to keep our recipes valid as well. If you've had if you're doing some test recipes, maybe they didn't make the cut, but you want to keep them, deactivate your recipes, get them out of the active category so you are only working with so many recipes. Saleable is going to be the items that are matched to your point of sale system, or these are the items that are going to be on your menu. Yet another way to categorize your information. Not saleable. Sub-recipes. Anytime you're going to use a recipe inside another recipe or count in physical inventory, you're going to want to mark it as a sub-recipe. Any upper level functionality of chef tech, such as production and saleable, you're going to want to mark it as a sub-recipe. When in doubt, mark it as a sub-recipe. You'll get better results because you can do a lot more with the recipes. Production, upper level, we've got menu items. So if I had catering parts, so if you're a full service barbecue BJ's, Jay, you probably have catering. You can create all of your menus in here and price out your menus if you don't have another software to do that. We've got allergies and different, if we're using the chef tech items, we can look at what recipes have eggs, fish, milk, peanuts, shellfish. We also have different ways to search our recipes and look at the different items for tools, what's in our recipes. So I'm going to go ahead and reopen my Alsatian potato salad. My Alsatian potato salad is basically a batch recipe. When I'm writing my recipes, note the naming convention Chef Tech suggests is the capital of each letter, and it's going to be written as what it is on our menu. So in our inventory list, we do the naming convention of all lowercase, like onion, comma space, yellow, brief description. So when I'm looking at a recipe or I'm looking at my inventory list, I can quickly glance at what is going to be a raw ingredient that I purchased versus a sub-recipe. And it's just easier to detect in my list if you use that naming convention. Now, you can use the naming convention of whatever you wish, whether it's your inventory list or your recipe name, but you just want to keep it consistent, and that way you can really better access the data in front of you. If I wanted to say, okay, well, I want to put all my salads together, what I can do, and this is why I use categories. In my categories, I have the ability to put it in a salad, a menu cycle, an entree. I can put it in as many categories as I want. I can create my categories from the recipe itself as well. And that way, when I go into my recipe categories and go into my salads, I'm not looking for the salad comma space, but it's actually in my salad category all written out. But again, completely your choice of what you want to do as far as naming convention goes. My yield is going to be my total finished product. So if I am creating a stock or a soup, or I am cooking a piece of fatty meats, I know that there's a lot of reduction or usage value in barbecue, your pork butt, whatnot. So when you include your raw ingredients in your recipe, your yield is going to be the total finished product. That's how you're going to get the true cost of the recipe. Typically, in my yield and portion size, I want to keep the same unit of measure. So since my yield is pounds, I want to make sure that my portion size is also going to relate to a unit of measure in weight. Once I have yield and portion at the same unit of measure, my number of portions will automatically populate. If I do not, and my number of portions do not auto-populate, then it doesn't necessarily talk to each other. Now you can have, when I do plates or servings, I can create a unit of measure serving or each, but I want to ensure that my portion amount is going to also say each or servings, or if you choose a non-weight or volume. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So instead of you'd have 12 pounds of yield, you wouldn't put in 3 cups.
Yep. Exactly.
It's the same way I do it.
Right.
Okay. Perfect. So another option too, if you're not going to be using your point of sale system or talking to each other, so I sell my Alsatian potato salad. I sell a 4-ounce portion for it. So I have made it saleable, and this 1243 PLU is identical to my point of sale system. So I have it set up to when I import my sales, it's going to be attached to this 4-ounce portion size. So yield is going to be directed towards your production unit of measure, and your portion size is going to be directed towards your point of sales import. Now, if I wasn't using my import and I wasn't tracking my sales through ChefTech, for my batch recipes, I tend to do the same portion size as my batch because it's a batch. It's a 12-pound batch, but I use it for my 2-ounce to-goes. I use it for my 4-ounce scoops, and it gets used in numerous ways. So batch recipes, if it's not going to be linked to a point of sale system, my yield and portion will be identical. Make sense? Completely up to you. But yield and portions are very important, especially that unit of measure. They do need to be talking for the best results and the proper costing. Prep, cook, finish, shelf, that's completely up to you if that's something that you want to use or see in your ChefTech. It's going to be in your recipe view. I don't really have functionality as far as, you know, considering labor costs or anything like that. It's just useful if you want to use it. You do also have the ability in your properties to change what you see. So in box 1, I have prep. Say I wanted to say labor instead. And I hit OK. And now I can have the word labor up there. So customizable, use it how you want. Coming down here, we've got our actives. Again, this is something that's on my menu right now that I want to see. Sub-recipe allows me to produce my Alsatian potato salad in large batches. I also have the ability to count my Alsatian potato salad in my inventory to show less variance on my raw ingredients. And it gives me the ability to use my Alsatian potato salad in other recipes. So if I wanted to create a barbecue plate with ribs and potato salad and green beans, by selecting this, making it a sub-recipe, I have the ability to use Alsatian potato salad instead of creating this entire recipe inside my rib and green beans. Saleable, again, you can use it to use as a category, or you can link it to your point of sales, or it gives you the ability to manually enter in your sales if you so desire. My PLU number is going to be identical to my point of sale system, Micros, Aloha. We do have interfaces that will connect to basically all point of sales. Categories we've talked about. Locations we've talked about. You can create new locations as well as revise. If I wanted to use my plates, if I wanted to standardize my recipes and say, okay, my Alsatian potato salad always goes on in a ramekin. Again, you can use it as much detail or as little as you choose. Tools, if I had a large kitchen and I had a bunch of people that were new, I had students come in there, I'd say, okay, for this recipe, these are all the tools that you're going to need to make this recipe. Use it, don't use it, up to you. You will notice in our recipe list view, we have numerous tabs to our recipe. In our recipe tab, this is the only place that we can actually revise the recipe. We are unable, anytime you see grayed out in your ChefTech, that means you are unable to revise it and it's locked out. So if you see a cost or a missing problem, in order to fix it, you will have to go back to your recipe tab. If you hit complete, you will also notice that it will gray itself out, meaning we cannot manipulate the ingredients. This is a level of security that we have in ChefTech. Through our sysadmin, we have the ability to say, once our administrator has completed this recipe, no one is able to come in and revise it or change the ingredients or change the unit of measure. So once you put all of your hard work into ChefTech, you definitely want to use the sysadmin in order to lock down your system, because as you both will know or already know, it's a lot of hard work to get all pieces working. So in my recipe, you'll notice the functionality is the same in almost all screens of ChefTech. I'm going to come in and I'm going to add ingredients. I'm going to hit the enter button, which will get me to the next line. I'm going to add 2 cups and enter through of walnuts. Now you'll notice that once I have all of the purchases and my inventory list is set, I'm only going to want to use the items that are stocked, which will show in my stocked key, which is my Metro shelf. You'll also notice that I have a sub-recipe. So my warm pasta salad with scallops has a plate, fork, knife icon, where my raw ingredient has the Metro shelf icon. So I have the ability, once again, to look at a quick glance. Since this is all caps and this is all lowercase, I can detect that my walnut pieces is a stocked raw ingredient and I want to use that. Because by the time you get to recipe writing, you don't want to start adding new items into your ChefTech. You want to use items that you have a purchase for, you have a conversion for, or you have previous information for. I'm also going to add 2 enter fluid ounces of oil. And I can see here I'm going to use walnut oil. And I have a property set. If I go into my properties button, I have the ability in my ingredients to show only stocked items in the drop-down box. This will give me, I will not be able to see any items that are not stocked, and I will not be able to add brand new items. But we certainly can. We're going to say 2 ounces of oil, Becky's oil. So I'm going to just type in Becky. It's going to say, did you spell this correctly? Because you're about to add this into your system. Do you want to add it? I'm going to say yes. It's going to automatically come into that snapshot of that item. And I'm just going to hit OK and enter on through. Now I do have another property set to say that it is stocked. I can also move items up. I can say, okay, well, I want this to move up, so I'm going to highlight it, and I'm going to use my left arrow, which is my top arrow, and move it up. I also have the ability to use pre and post instructions. Down below here in my dialog box is a complete word processor. This is going to give you the ability to write your method. So I tend to choose whether I'm going to use pre and post instructions. So when I look at my recipe view, I have the ability to see chopped tomatoes and sliced yellow onions within my recipe and my ingredient list. Or if I decide that I want to chop my tomatoes and use all of my method in my descriptive box, then I won't use my pre or post instructions because I don't want to be redundant and do it in both places. Again, completely up to you. Especially if you're speed typing, sometimes I will take my pre-instructions. I will click on my pre-instructions, hold it down, and move it over. So now I'm just doing a quick type in. I also have the ability in my properties to look at my ingredients and take all of that out and keep it completely simple, and now I can just write it out quickly. Any questions?
That was extra. I didn't know that one.
Oh, good. So you learned something. So we all learned something. Okay, so now we care. Down here in our word processor box, we do have the ability to spell check to see what we've got over here and add items because ChefTech doesn't know everything. I know that it doesn't have queso, so you'll have to add that to the dictionary, but you have the ability to spell check. You have the ability to set up the different font sizes to keep it consistent in your system. You can also cut and paste from other documents in there as well. So what we're here for is our costs. Let's see what our costs are looking like over here. Notice anything in red in our problems is going to give us not the correct cost, because if I don't have a purchase, it's applying $0 to my cost. If I have a missing conversion, you will also notice that it is offering a 0 cost for my walnut pieces and my Becky oil. So this cost will never be correct if there are red problems. In order to fix our problem so we can appropriately cost out, we will start with our missing conversion. And as we talked about, we can make conversions as hard or as easy as possible. So once again, I'm going to right-click, edit inventory item to get me into the snapshot of ChefTech. When I'm battling conversions, once I right-click, the very first tab that I go to is purchases. How did I buy it? That's all I need to know, and all I need to know is the last time I bought it. So all these other purchases do not matter. So what I'm looking at is I bought it from Sysco, and I bought it by the pound, which is a weight unit of measure. Then I ask myself, how did I use it in my recipe? So to my bottom left, I use it by the cup, 2 cups of walnut pieces. Cup is a unit of measure that is volume. So ChefTech needs to know a weight to volume conversion. So I go into my conversion tab, and I see here that when I buy from Sysco, 1 case is 5 pounds. When I buy from Spices and More, 1 case is 1 pound. So I did go on my conversions because Sysco and Spices and More have different case sizes, so that certainly is the way I need to do that conversion. But what I'm missing here is I'm using my walnut pieces by the cup. So I've got to tell ChefTech my weight to volume. So I have 2 choices. I can create a conversion of weight to volume, and that way I can use it across the board, because walnut pieces, I do want to use it by the cup, especially if I'm doing desserts, because it's very volume sensitive. Or I can actually change my recipe and say I want, instead of 2 cups, I want 1 pound of walnut pieces, because if I said 1 pound, since I have my conversions in here and I bought it by the pound, it would convert. But I chose to say 2 cups because I'm thinking about my kitchen. What's going to make more sense to my kitchen? Do they know that they are familiar with cups? So even though you have to make a decision when you're fixing these problems in ChefTech to get your true cost, is how are you using your recipes? Are the people in the kitchen using these recipes? And if so, you want to make them as relative to them as possible. If they're not, and you're only concerned about cost, then certainly change the walnut pieces on the recipe level and use it by a weight. But in this instance, I want to use my cup, so I'm going to go to my conversions. I'm going to click inside of a box and hit enter. I'm going to enter through all 4 to get to my next line. And the one thing about weight to volume conversions is that you can select any vendor. That way, no matter, because I doubt my nuts are heavier in Cisco than spices and more. So any vendor is going to work. And I'm going to, and I don't have to get it to cups, I just need to get it to a weight to volume. So I'm going to say 1 pound equals 4 cups. But I can use any volume. I can use a gallon if I wanted to, because ChefTech knows weight to weight to weight, pounds to ounces, and grams, and cups to gallons to fluid ounces. So I hit OK, and my missing conversion is gone. Becky's oil. Well, I don't have a purchase for it. So I have 2 options here. I can either enter in a purchase through the purchase screen and select my vendor, and I know that I'm going to get it from Boulder Produce because I called for a quote, and I'm going to say quantity 1 tab gallon is going to be $25. Very expensive Becky's oil. And I hit OK, and now I'm missing a conversion. Can either one of you tell me why I am missing a conversion?
Well, you don't have any, you have fluid ounces, but it's not going by the gallon. So you got to get it down to your, you got to do more conversion on it.
I do. So if I go into my conversions, I don't have any. So my first was I purchased it by the gallon. I'm using it by the ounce. So a gallon is a volume, and an ounce is a weight. So in this instance, I would want to say, okay, I can change this to fluid ounces because it is a liquid and I can use it. Fluid ounces is a volume. So when I look at units of measure, I think of weight to volume. I try not to get myself down into the actual naming convention of the unit. I say, oh, fluid ounces is a volume, ounces is a weight. So now if I go to my cost, my missing conversion is gone. The other option would have been, like you said, I bought it by the gallon, so I can say, okay, any vendor, 1 gallon equals, I could go weigh my gallon and say 1 gallon equals 2 pounds. So now I've got a weight to volume conversion in there, and so I could actually come in here and say, well, actually I do want to use this by the ounce, come into my cost, and I'm not missing a conversion because I have a weight to volume in there.
I make sure I have both of them, so I always have a weight and I have a measure.
Yeah.
Regardless what recipe it is, it'll always. I don't ever have. I try not to have that problem.
Mm-hmm. So that's great. That's doing your due diligence on the front end. So at this point, since I've added some crazy, wacky stuff, my costs are just out of control. So I'm going to go ahead and say, Becky's oil, that's way too much money. I am not spending $1.56 on 2 ounces of oil. So sorry, Becky's Oil, I'm removing it by hitting my minus sign and say yes. I'm going to go ahead and take out my walnut pieces as well. And I'm going to keep my walnut oil. Why not? Go into my cost. And so for a 12-pound batch, it's telling me that it's running me at $21.04. But if I come back here and say, well, generally I do serve 4 ounces of it, I want to see what the price is per 4-ounce portion, keeping my weight and volume. So this is telling me if I charge $2.44, I'm at an 18% food cost with a $2 profit. Every 4-ounce portion costs 44 cents. So I'm happy with that, but I'm saying, well, I don't need to be that cheap. So I'm going to say, okay, generally I like to run a 25% food cost. I only have to charge $1.75 for that 4-ounce portion. All is well in the world. Here's my entire recipe as far as costing. It cost me $21.04 for the entire 12-pound batch. I could charge $84.15 if I charge no discounts on the batch, running 25% food cost, and I make $63 for every 12 pounds of potato salad I make. I also have the ability to calculate my cost. It's auto-populated to cost of the most recent purchase, but I also have the ability to do the average price, the lowest price, the highest price, bids, whatever I want to see. Now, if I do the average price, lowest or highest, remember in my conversions I said that it only say what was my last purchase. If you use any other methods of cost, if you have garbage information down here because your chef tech's been passed on and you have different units of measure, your conversions, if you don't have a conversion for a junk unit of measure, it's going to create problems. So just keep that in mind if you're going to use another method of cost. Nutrition. Nutrition is going to be based on the raw ingredients. That's how the nutrition facts for recipes are devised. You'll also know that your portion size is going to be your serving size of your nutrition labels. So if this was a batch recipe and I moved it back to 12 pounds, it's going to have a 12 pounds for nutritional facts. You're going to have your allergens listed out. You're going to have your ingredients listed out with the most used item or the most ingredients to the least amount. So this is directly correlated to the USDA standards. You got some descriptors, allergens, and if I had any items missing, which are my sub-ingredients, I would have that there. Production is going to be your upper level functionality of Chef Tech. This is going to give you the ability, again, to I will produce my Alsatian potato salad through Chef Tech, and what it will do is add the potato salad to my inventory, and it will deplete my potatoes, onions, celery, and so forth if I start producing it. It will also create prep sheets for you, and you can create production sheets based on menus or a bunch of recipes, what you so choose. I can upload pictures on. And here's my potato salad, my Alsatian potato salad. I can also create videos of how to produce it, whatever you choose to be there. Once I've got it all built out, we have a preview. We have our view of it, of what we want to see. Like I said, since I filled all this information out, it will be included on the recipe. And I also have different print views. I can look at it in horizontal format with my HACCP on there, and my HACCP will come up. The HACCP is also in the raw ingredient portion of Chef Tech. Right-click, edit inventory item. We have our HACCP that we can assign. And we have our shopping list. I could also look and see what I need in order to produce 12 pounds potato salad. So this will also help me in my ordering if I so choose, or I know what I need to grab out of the walk-in in order to create 12 pounds. This is also helpful in production as well, because once you produce all of these different recipes, it'll give you a master shopping list for all of the items that you are producing. Nutritional information and labels. So once your nutrition is out, if you had any grab and go, you can actually print out the labels to put on your containers. You also have the ability to save your recipes. You can save them in any type of format, PDF or Word or Excel. So if you wanted to print them out for your recipe books. And that's it. One good report, actually, before I open it up for questions, is going to be in reports on my button bar. In my recipe, you'll notice anything that is going to be grayed out is going to be reported from the actual list view. So that print drop down at the top, anything you have grayed out here is going to show up in your print view. Anything that is white, you're going to notice that it can only be printed from the report manager view. So my favorite report for recipes as far as costing out or information is when I go to reports, drop down recipe, and go to inventory items not costed in recipes. This will give me all of the items in my recipes, and I can also sort by category. So this is another reason why I use categories. So if you're definitely cleaning up your items and you just want to isolate a few categories at a time, but right now I just want to see everything. If I hit preview, what this is going to give me is all of the items that have missing conversions, no purchases, and it's going to give me the inventory item as well as what recipe it is in and what the problem is. So I can see that my shrimp salad and my fennel seed are missing conversions in my chilled grease soup and my shrimp salad, and I'm missing a purchase for claw knuckle lobster and my butter, fettuccine and lobster butter sauce. So if I know that this fettuccine with lobster is a top seller and I run this report and I'm missing a purchase, that's because somebody included knuckle claw in my recipe, but clearly I'm not using that if I don't have a purchase for it. I must be using some other type of lobster. So it's always good to look at this on an occasional basis when you're working with recipes to ensure that a different purchase didn't come through or somebody changed it accidentally. All right, we have about 5 minutes for questions. What do you have for me? Anything?
You know, the biggest problem I had here trying to print books was getting it to the PDF to get it in a format where I could just send it to the printer.
Right. So if I go to my, I go to my basil cream sauce, I hit preview, and then what I'll want to do is save as PDF, and I can put it on my desktop. The other way is if you print it from here, this is exactly what it's going to print as.
And the only other problem would be is that everything is page 1. So when you open up, because you have to do that for every individual, there was never a way that you could never just grab all of your breakfast items and go, okay, these are all my breakfast recipes, you know, in alphabetical order, just the way it is on that page.
Right.
And then I'd like that for my breakfast book, and it would give you, you know, everything you needed to do with your nutritional and your page, a corresponding page number, because otherwise everything prints as page 1.
Right. I hear you. Well, Chef Tech definitely has some personalities in there for sure.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I don't have any questions. Just I got a lot of cleaning up to do on the recipes and so forth. There's a lot of fluid ounces that were put in as ounces and so forth like that. So I got my work out.
Yep. Cleanup is tough. Absolutely. Well, we definitely have different e-learning classes on a whole bunch of different subjects. We also have one-on-one training where we actually go into your database and work with you for an hour to work solely with you. We also have our support team. If you do have support, they're here Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 Mountain Standard Time. If you have any quick questions that you need answered, they are certainly there to help. If you abuse them, they will send you to your sales rep and tell you to get training. We also do on-site training. We do data entry. So we have a lot of services to make you successful and for you to use your Chef Tech. So please be sure to utilize those. Your success is our success, basically.
Right.
All right, gentlemen, well, if there's no other questions, I'm going to end this, and good luck with your journey. I hope to see you in the future and all your progress.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Good day.
Bye-bye.